Student registration are now underway at tertiary institutions around the country, the academic year resuming this month. Karinda Jagmohan joins us from Durban after speaking to officials and students at the Durban and Mangosuthu Universities of Technology and the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Karinda, good afternoon to you. What are the big concerns at those institutions in that city today?
Good afternoon. Well, these are the three major universities in Durban, at least. The Durban University of Technology, where we are now focused, or we spoke about rather, the issue of the elections that are happening this year and how it will impact students. Especially because around the campus, as new students come to register to be part of DUT, there are many political organizations that have set up tents helping first-year students to register to make their way through this new environment of a tertiary institution, and then also perhaps be part of that political fold. We spoke to the DUT registrar, who did say that they do encourage student activism, but they also mentor students to be aware of what they are involving themselves in when it comes to politics, and how essentially to be politically or how to be part of political campaigns. They also said that there's quite a lot of engagement now between student infrastructures, whether the SRC or other student communities and the university, to engage constantly about issues at DUT. We also went to we also approached the University of KwaZulu-Natal to see how they are starting off their academic year. And what is significant there is that they have introduced a compulsory module for first years called the Social Justice and Citizenship module. This is compulsory for all new students that will ultimately focus on matters aligning them to social justice. So essentially looks at issues of gender-based violence, racism, homophobia, xenophobia, among a range of issues we still see among various societies today, various communities today, and especially just looking at young people to ensure that they're aware of this and how to essentially respond to these issues. So that's what happened at UKZN. We went to the Mangosuthu University of Technology in Umlazi, south of Durban, where there is a particular issue regarding water challenges. This is a municipal issue, the eThekwini municipality, where water is not constant across Durban, but specifically affecting as well the northern and southern parts of the city. So in Umlazi there are water shortages. It's impacted MUT. They've had to delay registration. So right now first years are being called to physically register for their specific courses, and the returning students will register next week. It's unclear how this will continue if these water challenges continue. But there, outside that university, are a number of students who have not managed to find place. There are similar issues countrywide. We spoke to one young woman who is from Jozini, which is in northern KwaZulu-Natal. She travelled here to hopefully find a place in university to study public management, but she could not find a place, and she'll be going back home this afternoon. Take a listen to her story.
Bengizokwenza i-public management, kwathiwa isikhala sesigcwele kanti futhi i-maths yami ivele ibiphansi level 1. Kwathiwa angizami ukwenza i-change of mind. Ngayenza i-change of mind, kwathiwa ngenze i-office tech. Nakhona kuthiwa isigcwele ngoba baningi abantu abebenenkinga efana neyami base ba-apply kuse-A-League. Ingakho ngasithola ngisikhala, sangena ngaphakathi, salaliswa ngaphakathi. Sibe nenkinga yamanzi-ke, kodwa-ke ngoba besigeza lezansi bekumele sihambe i-distance phela uma kumele siyogeza. Kodwa basiphathe kahle ngoba basinikeza izindawo yokulala. Savuka futhi namanje kusagcwele, sisazama usizo futhi. Namanje awukho ushintsho ngoba kuthiwa asikho space. Sathatha laba aba-engineering kuphela.
Karinda Jagmohan for that live update. Thank you very much indeed. That's the situation in Durban at this time of the year, doesn't present only challenges to students, but also to student representative councils. They're dealing with student matters related to registration and enrollments. Zola Sholwana at the University of Pretoria. Zola, good afternoon to you. What are you seeing there?
Good evening, Stephen. Well, where we are right now at the University of Pretoria, one would assume that, everything is in order looking at what's happening in the background. But we are told that students are facing similar challenges that TUT students that we spoke to earlier on are facing. Now, in terms of the numbers, there weren't a lot of people that gathered here today, but we're told that a lot of students came in last week. But we are obviously joined by student council representatives that will be telling us about their problems or challenges that they know of as far as students are concerned. Stelo, thank you very much for your time. I mean, we spoke earlier on, and one would assume that everything is flowing this side, and you are not experiencing the same problems that TUT students are experiencing. What are the challenges on the ground?
Thank you, Zola. The challenges are very similar to TUT in that we have a lot of students who are unable to register now as a result of not being able to afford the registration fees, the fact that NSFAS defunded a lot of students from their system, and the 13 billion rand cut from NSFAS budget is also doing us a very huge disservice on the ground here in terms of people who have to register. Also, we have students who had to have registered by a certain date in January, I think it's 19th of January, and they were unable to do so because NSFAS has not released the list of people who they have approved, or if they even have approved those people or rejected them. So we are on our side lobbying and negotiating with the university to extend the registration period to ensure that those students, when accepted by NSFAS or approved by NSFAS, they're able to register and continue with their studies.
Now, since you've been interacting with the students, perhaps you could paint us a picture of how those students that were supposed to be in class on the 19th, medical students, I'd like to believe, how are they feeling now, considering the fact that obviously they don't know where they stand as far as NSFAS is concerned?
There is honestly a lot of anxiety amongst the students, a lot of uncertainty as to what is going to happen, and they're looking at any possible avenue to find assistance. And that's why we are in the position that we're in, is because we receive the hundreds of emails every 5 minutes from the students begging us to find a way to help them. And that's why we are doing the best we can to ensure that we engage the university and we sort of pressure NSFAS to move their feet, because on the ground it is bad. There's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of uncertainty, and it is not a good picture.
Thank you very much for your time, Sholwana. Kanye, let's come to you. Now, as the chairperson, you would know the numbers in terms of who has been approved by NSFAS. Have you received a list, perhaps? Because as it stands, some of the students, well, at TUT at least, don't know where they stand.
Thank you, Zola. We also, similar to TUT, do not know right now. And I think the problem is not just who currently has NSFAS funding. It's people whose appeals went unanswered last year. It's people whose appeal statuses have changed on the NSFAS portal, yet their funds are not released. It's students right now that are sitting with debts from 2022 that NSFAS hasn't paid, not just 2023. So we are in limbo. Students are in limbo, yeah.
So what is the way forward? Because I'd like to assume that, now one would expect to know what's going to happen, as far as the academic, year is concerned. And some of them are actually reaching out to you guys to perhaps find a solution or be in communication with the relevant parties to solve their problems.
So with the study finance officer, we regularly have meetings with finance to try and see if there's a way where we can bridge the gap to assist those students who currently do not have any way forward. And as Stella has mentioned, that we are trying to get our registration also pushed back, just so that we allow enough time for, if the list, and we pray it comes through, that many students are on it, many students are funded, for those funds to get released, for people to start the academic year without the stress of having to now worry about finances.
Now, when we were at Tshwane University of Technology, there were a number of students that were rejected in other institutions and, found their way at TUT gates. Have you experienced that as well as UP?
Yes, we have. So there are quite a number of walk-ins that we did see, and the unfortunate thing is that if the student is not on the system, it becomes difficult for us to do anything pertaining to assisting them because of how the intake process works at the university. So it's actually very painful to see that you have matriculants of last year who did not know that you have to apply to come into a university. Instead, they thought that coming with your statements of results would guarantee you a place. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kanye. That was obviously a temporary student structure that has been, elected by the university at the University of Pretoria, representing the interests of students, basically saying that, it's not as good as it looks also here at UP, considering the fact that they also have their challenges that are quite similar to TUT students, as most students that are funded by NSFAS are left in limbo as they don't know what will happen. Kanye also mentioned that there were medical students that were supposed to be in class on the 19th of January, but because, they haven't gotten a response from NSFAS and they haven't registered, which then means that they could possibly lose their space in the faculty. Stephen, back to you in studio.
Zola, Sholwana, thanks very much indeed at the University of Pretoria. Well, in a moment, we've seen two of the big institutions, three of the big institutions and two of the big cities. We get an overall view on the challenges facing higher education institutions with Professor Jonathan Jansen.